Regional Trade Business Council in collaboration with Private Sector Foundation Uganda, PSFU, and Uganda Manufacturers Association have today convened to address persistent challenges hindering trade and investment within the region. With over 300 million people regional market, focus has been set to eradication of barriers that have impeded sustainable trade. Competition law, harmonized standards, taxes were all quoted as key in the discussion.
Private sector and the East African Business Council have come together to formulate policy issues that they intend to address before the head of state during the East African Business Summit planned for August. Key issues such as non-tariff barriers, cutthroat competition, among others, continue to impede integration of trade. Similarly, there is need for efficient infrastructure and regulatory policies to foster effective trade beyond East Africa.
As EABC, we are celebrating 25 years of existence, and in these 25 years we've had a lot of amazing achievements, but we're saying we need to embrace technology. We need to make sure that our people understand the policies, prepare for export, and take advantage of this huge market we got since Congo joined the East African community.
In regards to harmonization of standards,
yes.
what do you think to achieve that?
One of the things that is going to happen as a celebration is that we're going to be having monthly stakeholder engagements among the private sector. We want to come up with policy briefs to the regulators to come up with a unified or a synchronized regulatory environment for standards. Right now, standards are being used to promote non-tariff barriers, and that is a huge problem. But I am very glad that competition law is developing in the region. Uganda has just worked on its law. I think Kenya passed its law. Tanzania is on its way. But as a region, we need to establish a strong competition framework so that we stop this competitive practice.
What we are doing and what has emerged through this meeting, EABC to champion the mutual recognition aspect, to ensure that those goods that we have agreed need to move seamlessly without any barrier across the region. We should not see milk from Uganda being restricted to access Kenyan market or Rwandan market or Tanzanian market. We should not see any product from Rwanda not accessing any other market. So it is the role of EABC to ensure that there is coherence, consistency in terms of policy, in terms of measures, in terms of regulations, in terms of laws that we have agreed. And really members have raised the pertinent issue saying that if we cannot trade within our region, why are we going to continental free trade area? What will CFT offer when we have failed to trade amongst ourselves?
Profound manufacturers that have dominated the local and regional markets, such as Tembo Steels, believe there is need for synchronized standards and policies, citing instance for integration. For example, Uganda Bureau of Standards and Uganda's plus other East African states, that there is less productive time wasted, which in turn would incur losses.
All those, and then EABC members come and talk and take out our pain. We need to work on that one, because we are not synchronized. We are talking about ESC. Anything you produce, no, it has to go back to Arusha. You go and present in Arusha, no, it has to go to Kenya. Kenya has to approve. You go to Kenya, then you go to Rwanda. Rwanda, then you go to Burundi, which doesn't have any say. They don't use the product. So how long it takes to make one product which is good for the community? We are making good for community. The last example I am giving you, which my colleague is also here from roofing, we all are very good. Earlier we were fighting between us, the roofing is bad, this is bad. Suddenly one day we got a meeting. You all are making a bad product. You remember? And we all got surprised. After 23 years we are making bad products in this country. We are supplying to Tanzania, we are supplying to Kenya, and everything is stopped. Now wow. So as Mr. Ezra said, there is a competition. Somebody come from somewhere and tell the policy maker, you know, this is not good. So what we are doing in this country for the last 24 years.
Prudence Zukunika also elaborated several challenges faced due to the avoidable inconsistencies presented by shoddy frameworks. According to Brenda Kankunda, a trade analyst, there is need to see budget support to the private sector, especially on key areas such as standards, export promotion, for example. This will ultimately support charge for fully regional integration and the African Continental Free Trade Area.
There are times when you have a problem and you keep it to yourself, it will not be solved. This is a very big problem. I cannot go to Russia when East Africa is not yet solved. I was in every country in East Africa, but because of COVID, it was hard to travel, it was hard to trade. And especially Rwanda, where I had my wines in every supermarket. But because of the closure of the border and the closure of COVID-19, that took like 3 years. Bella wine is a very nice wine, which is loved by everyone. They had consumed and finished. And another challenge is that most of the customers I had there, like supermarkets, most of them were closed. So it is a very big challenge now to start again. Now the challenge where it is that Rwanda Revenue Authority continues counting taxes, putting penalties.
These are usually based on what we have in place, but also the negotiations that we see happening at the moment. We're so excited about the AFCFTA that is coming up, but yet we also see regional blocks like the EAC being shaped as a building block for this AFCFTA. So that ideally means that we need to realign our EAC and address the issues that are persistent within the community. Most importantly, to do with our issues to do with standards, market access, and issues around taxation, our fiscal policy. We see a lot of competition within our taxation framework. Yet, the point that we've been seeing on the EAC is how best we can address the issue of tax harmonization, which at the moment is still lacking, and I think that is one of the areas that also needs to be taken into account. Secondly, we need to see how our budget is supporting the private sector. When you look at this year's budget and the share that is given to Uganda National Bureau of Standards, but also to Uganda Export Promotion Board.
Honorable Nathan Nabeta called forth for investment funding beyond commercial banks to include capital markets and set forth for trade and investment to shape regional agenda. Still, there is call for budget support to the private sector to be realized as competition needs to be checked through legislation.
In Uganda, you've only relied, and in Uganda we only do 14%, and that's only from banks. So we don't have financing. And if you don't have financing, it is very, very difficult to do what you want to do. So I think I want you to look at the capital markets as the alternative to raising money, to do what we need to do. We are working on trying to streamline that as well and try to improve the environment of the capital markets so that we are able to have the wananchi involved. I always tell people that if you really want independence, you are going to have to make sure that you raise the money yourself.
I believe it would be one of the things that we will put on the agenda as PSFU. And it is also important to have how we actually actualize the regional competition laws. Because as you can see, and it has been raised across in the meeting that we've had, we are doing almost the same things, and sometimes these things create challenges by way of competition. So we'll have this discussed.
In an ongoing push to foster fair competition and enhance regulatory harmonization, the East African Business Council remains a force in driving commitment to a level playing ground for businesses across the region. Ronah Nahabwe, Masi Katsimi for Smart 24 TV, Business Today.
Now, history is made at Paris Air Show as it soars to new heights with a monumental plane order, setting a groundbreaking milestone for aviation. Airbus made a statement on the first day of the Paris Air Show by announcing the largest ever purchase of the civil aircraft, as French President Emmanuel Macron joined a large audience for the event's return after a 4-year break.
The 500-plane deal with the low-cost Indian carrier Indigo kicked off what organizers have bailed as the Recovery Air Show after the coronavirus ravaged the sector and the biennial trade fair was cancelled in 2021. This year's air show has a new focus on defense following Russia's invasion of Ukraine, along with the industry's effort to reduce its carbon footprint, with French President Emmanuel Macron arriving in a helicopter partly using sustainable aviation fuel. On the civilian side, plate makers arrived with growing demand expectations as airlines rush for capacity to meet demand, help reach industry goals of net zero emissions by 2050. In addition, suppliers are having trouble keeping up with the demand due to growing costs, lack of parts and lack of competent labor in the wake of the pandemic. As airlines attempt to fill a hole left by dramatic drops in activity during the COVID crisis, industry experts claim that as many as 2,000 jet orders are up for grabs globally as the rebounding commercial jet market, on top of these tentatively announced already. Indigo's deal highlights the growing importance of India, the world's fastest growing aviation market, serving the largest population plate makers. Looking ahead to the rest of the show, Air India may finalize its recent huge order split between Airbus and Boeing as Irish loser Avalon finalizes a deal with Boeing, which is having a relatively quiet show after a string of recent orders. Airbus is seen to close potential large deal with Mexico's Viva Aerobus, but by Monday some sources were predicting the volume could be closer to 60 jets than the triple digits first reported, with no guarantee of a result this week. And with the increased bargaining power at the disposal from tight supplies, airline executives say plate makers are being tougher on price and more circumspect than in the previous up cycles.
We've come to the close of business today, but before I sign out, here's a quick look at what made the top stories. In business today, East African Business Council, PSFU and UMA convened to draft effective measures to exploit trade. SACCOs have emphasized the need for a unified regulatory system to streamline operations. And NSSF experiences growth from 3.5 trillion shillings to 7.3 trillion shillings since its inception. And we've come to the close of business today. That's pretty much it what we had for you today on Business Today. I'm Ronah Nahabwe together with Winnie Buyinza Nakawuchunde Sign Language. Special thanks to Blight for putting this all together and making sure that you had a good bulletin. And I would like to implore you to watch on our YouTube channel in case you missed this bulletin and follow up for more to be up to date with the business news in the region. You have a good night.